So, good evening. Just to remind you, it's been a while since we were introduced. I'm Bill Evers. I'm a research fellow at the Hoover Institution at Stanford University. I was a member of the California Academic Standards Commission when we looked at the National Common Core Curriculum Content Standards back in 2010. I've also served on the item writing and review panel for the California State Math standards-based test, and also for history test in California State official state test in history. I'm a former board president of a highly successful charter school. I ran this school system in Iraq in 2003. My wife, I'm a former elected trustee of a county school board in California, and my wife is a local school board member right now. And I was also U.S. Assistant Secretary of Education for Policy 2007 to 2009. And Jane invited me to say something about the federal privacy law. So a lot of times Congress writes some language, and in this case, this language was written by Senator James Buckley, who was this former U.S. Senator from New York State, and he's the brother of National Review founder William F. Buckley Jr. And so he wrote this thing. He was concerned about bureaucratic intrusion and violation of family privacy, of children's privacy, and so forth. And so then, of course, there had to be rules to flesh this out by some more detail. And the U.S. Department of Education had such rules. And these rules were very, very narrowly tailored to education. So the data is owned by the local districts, and it's supposed to be kept by them, and it's supposed to be only used for educational purposes, including any transfer to the state. Narrowly understood, not labor agencies, not health and welfare agencies, okay? And so this was explicitly in the rules from the time that this was passed by Congress until the Obama administration. Now, when I was U.S. Assistant Secretary for Policy, we did update them to have, again, very carefully controlled access for some research. But we did not turn them upside down to open it up to vendors, to labor, workforce planning agencies, and so forth. So this is what Jane was trying to make clear. Okay, so I thought if I were trying to come tonight and think about all this, I would want to think about how does this affect me as a parent or a grandparent, sort of a kitchen table, look at it, and also thinking about my children or grandchildren, a long run and a short run view. This is a parent, or perhaps also a taxpayer and a civic-minded person. So if I were trying to decide what I thought about this, the first thing I would say is, are the national standards going to make a positive difference? Okay. It seems like they're not. What are we doing, wasting our time and money on this, right? So I think not, for three reasons, basically. The first reason is this. State standards have already reduced the classroom-to-classroom teaching quality differences as much as is possible. Okay, so what this means is you already have state standards in New Hampshire. Okay, so lots of things go into student success. Lots of things go into a classroom success. To the extent you're going to get a boost from having common expectations, you've already gotten whatever boost you're going to get. Okay, so I'm not making this up, by the way. Tom Lovelace of the Brookings Institution, Grover Whitehurst, former president or former director of the Institute for Educational Sciences in the U.S. Department of Education. All these people have made this point already. It's not Rick Hanishek, famous educational economist, they've made the same point. So you're not going to have that kind of improvement. Now, what about other countries out there? So we're sort of an unusual country. Sometimes we speak of American exceptionalism when we're trying to talk about this. Now, the countries that do better than the United States out there in the world, they often do have national standards. But the countries that do worse than they also have national standards because we're an unusual country. We have a system called federalism, and we are quite decentralized compared to most countries in the world. So, since we're different than most, the ones that do better often have national standards, the ones that do worse, so there's no way to really tell from that. Now, we do know that some countries that are pretty similar to us, Australia and Canada, do not have national standards. Now take Canada, just to explain something. So we have information based on international tests and comparisons going back to the 1970s, and we can see where Canada was on international test, Tim's test, back then, and where they are today, and where the US is, and the US is today. Okay, so the exciting news is that Canada has gone from the mediocre ranks up into the advanced ranks. Yeah, remember, they have they have no federal office no national office of education, they have no national ministry, national department of education whatsoever, so they're less centralized in the United States. By the way, this is the bad news, we have continued on our mediocre trajectory as we get more and more nationalized. So I don't think that's evidence that this is going to improve things. Now, what about the standards themselves? Are they pretty much no problem? These are great. No mistakes, no errors, nothing that we should be worried about. Well, it's not really true. When I was working on reviewing the standards in California, I found errors in the primary grades having to do with long and short vowels, and I called up some of the people that were involved in official review of this, and I said, it seems to me there's a mistake here. You're right, Bill, there's a mistake. But what can we do? 35 states have already accepted it. We can't change it. So they're still in it. And for example,
Croc TV.